Hey everyone, it's Christine here. Welcome to this video on the winter solstice. Quick clarifier here. This video is timeless. I will mention some dates since I'm filming this close to the winter solstice in 2023, but everything else remains the same regardless of when the winter solstice occurs and whether it's in the Southern Hemisphere, of course, for a few details like the dates and times. So the winter solstice comes from the Latin sol and sistere, meaning sun standing still, or sun stillness, or to stand still, or sun standing. And it also originates from the word bruma, which originates with the Brumalia festival during the Roman Empire that involved days of festivities around food, drinking, celebrating, and also making divinatory and prophetic predictions for the upcoming winter season. So winter solstice has been celebrated by many cultures around the world for thousands of years. I was going to say since ancient times. We're talking long time, since 10,200 BC, Stone Age. We've seen evidence of this in Newgrange, Ireland, in the Nazca lines in Machu Picchu in Peru, in the Egyptian temple of Karnak in Luxor, in Angkor Wat in Cambodia, and in Petra in Jordan. In addition, I will also offer other examples of modern day celebrations around the winter solstice towards the end of the video. Let's dive into the astronomical meaning. So the Earth tilts towards the sun, it's furthest away when we have the winter solstice. So naturally the sun's path here is low, it's closer to the horizon. The sun usually rises from east, ascending upward, and then west, and it sets westward. And during the summer, we see the sun arcs high in the sky, whereas in the winter, it's the opposite. The sun is directly over the Tropic of Capricorn at 23.5 degrees south of the equator. So naturally, for those folks in the Southern Hemisphere during this time, they're going to be experience summer. So on this day of the winter solstice, we experience the shortest day of the year in terms of sunlight and the longest night of the year. So the actual solstice itself is very short and it feels long because the sun is kind of like wavering, it's standing there. But the next day it's moving. We're going to gradually see more light as we head towards the spring equinox in April. So the symbolic meanings and energies around the solstice tend to linger and permeate longer than the actual solstice itself. So that's a generally one-day event. The astronomical winter season is also highlighted here for folks in the Northern Hemisphere, not just with the summer solstice, but also the sun entering Capricorn. So remember, just because it's not cold doesn't mean that there's not going to be a winter solstice. The meteorological weather and the degrees and temperatures and a whole host of other factors have nothing to do with that. This has to do more with the light. That's it. So from here on out, we're going to continue shedding, literally and metaphorically, as we get greater light towards the sun. The spiritual signification of the winter solstice, it really brings up the themes around rest, reflection, introspection, solitude, withdrawing, perhaps the hermit energy too, even though that's Virgo energy. But this is also very much about reviewing and realizing where in the dark we are at. What are we feeling? What's coming up? Anything that we need to be aware of, because as the light comes in, we're going to get clarity, more truth, more knowledge. Things that we didn't see, we're going to see now with that light. This is also a great time to deal with things or anything to do with darkness, as many people know it or depict it, including shadow work, fears, anything that has been unresolved, subconscious, things that are coming. I also want to say, when you think of winter, even if you're not in the season itself, what comes up for you? Sometimes in literary works, you see wintering, time of rest, of slowing down, because this is a time too of endings, of completions, of wrapping things up. And also too, when you think of the winter season, even if you're not in a cold environment, you think of bundling up, layers, warmth, comfort, finding security. And these are all spiritual aspects and energies too that are exemplifying the winter solstice. So in short, we are honoring this darkness and light cycle of the sun and in our spiritual lives as well, because this is another way that we are learning and practicing and experiencing what it means to let go, to surrender, and also to have faith, because when we see that little spark of light, that gives us faith and hope. Let's get into the astrology now and the symbolism of the winter solstice. So like I mentioned, this occurs when the sun ingresses into the sign of Capricorn. This is an earth sign. This is a very pragmatic, judicious, ambitious, methodical energy. It's also a cardinal or tropical sign, so it initiates. This initiated the winter season. Most folks denote it as winter season. We have Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, Aquarius, traditionally ruled by Saturn, and then we have Pisces, Jupiter, with the coming of greater light. So a few things to know that'll help you understand astrologically, not just this meaning, but also help you feel into it, because it helps you understand it's not just, yeah, it's dark and we're going to see more light. Because in ancient cultures and in many indigenous cultures, they looked at this, the reverence towards the sun and different planetary bodies and constellations and stars, as interconnected. And there's a lot of beautiful stories around this. Perhaps those are separate videos in the future. But here in astrology, when you take a look at Saturn, it's the slowest moving planet, farthest moving planet as it pertains to the Chaldean order. So Saturn was seen as a great malefic. You could say someone that teaches us lessons. And while everyone refers to Saturn as the father, for me, I always get grandfather energy, perhaps because of the denotion of time. So significations around Saturn include limitations, restrictions, structures, boundaries, time, death, endings, decay, fate, tradition, melancholy, fears, and the material world. So we're looking and heading into the earthly realm, the material world, things we can see and touch, things are going to bounce into fruition. We're going to see them. It's not just in another realm that we can't see in the physical sense. Saturn was the Roman name for Kronos, the Greek god, the father of Zeus and his siblings. So he ruled the cosmos, but something here was that Saturn in many ways knew of his impending death. I think he felt it. That's one of the reasons why he swallowed his children, because they were going to kill him. Zeus eventually was tipped off and was able to find a way to defeat his father. We know that Zeus eventually overthrew him. So we see that the light came here, because Zeus is the archetype of Jupiter for Pisces. So you're going to see we have areas that require some level of structuring, right? We're entering some phase of darkness in our lives, literally, metaphorically, energetically, spiritually. And we're going through that because this is an area where when you go through the hallways, think about when you're walking through a dark hallway. You know, you don't know, you feel a lot of certain things. Some of it, especially if you're not familiar with the home, you may feel certain things come up, fears, but this is also getting reacquainted with those parts of yourself that you may not want to acknowledge or have not wanted to acknowledge, things that you may have been repressing or things that you know are coming to an end. And it's allowing us to deal with the finality of things, because after that, life continues. The physical matter, things that pass away and that essentially dissolve into the earth, they never die. It's just another form of energy that continues forward. What's interesting to note with the winter solstice, what's coming up, because this is a season not everyone enjoys. Many people, winter is not their favorite time of year, especially if it coincides with colder, snowy, icier, harsher climate. Because not everyone that lives or experiences winter experiences this season meteorologically. Saturn offers this counterbalance with major reality checks, and they're like posts along the road, the highway, the route. We can call it our soul journey, that allows us to check in and make sure we are progressing in the way that we want to, but more importantly, that the universe is like, wait a minute, you made a plan, let's make sure you're meeting those goals. So in doing so, he supports us. I kept getting strong grandfather energy here, but it's in the same vein as someone older than you. It could be a literal caretaker, a parent, a grandparent, or an energy that watches over you, that makes sure that you eat, brush your teeth, do the mundane chores in your life and responsibilities, you pay your bills on time. That's the energy of Saturn in our lives, wanting to make sure that we are making progress in our soul journey. And if we're not, well, then he's going to come out and have a talking. This is energetically too. So I want to be clear, during the winter seasons, that's when a lot of people, their moods may dip low. They may feel a certain something depending on where Capricorn is in your natal chart. Those are some themes that may be highlighted and some energies that you may feel that are amplified. So sometimes we find this area to be solitary, to be alone, to be like no one understands, to be like we're sinking in quicksand. And it's for strength and for resolve. This is, again, the opposite or flip side of the coin of Saturn, because Saturn tends to get a bad reputation. And these are the energies we're going to be feeling going into the winter solstice, largely speaking. Like I mentioned, the winter solstice itself is an event that occurs within one day, and the actual event is within a short time frame. So we're learning resolve, strength, responsibility, discipline, commitment, fortitude, intrinsic and internal motivation too, because sometimes the things we have to do them alone. And there's no one else that's reminding us every week, hey, don't forget this. Hey, good job. Hey, you've done this. The Saturnian parts of our life require that we dig deep within ourselves. It also helps us realize what we can accomplish in this world, what we're capable of. And a lot of times these energies provoke us to look within. It doesn't mean you have to be by yourself, because you can be in darkness with others, but sometimes it can be uncomfortable, because in darkness, we don't always see things, we don't always know things. More importantly, sometimes we don't connect to ourselves because we don't want to feel those things that are coming up or that need to be addressed. Resting and pausing is this intermediary form of respite that allows us to feel and sit with what we've learned. This is the emotional aspect that I feel, the depth that I feel that Capricorn brings as it's ruled by Saturn with the winter solstice, especially in the beginning of this journey, and then heading into Aquarius, which is also ruled traditionally by Saturn, but it manifests in very different ways, because you have that same drive and that same ambition, but it's something of, it's something of making progress and moving forward. It's like when you see the wheels, maybe a car is going forward and you're like, wait, I need to catch that. I need to catch that bus, that train, that maybe a car, a ride, or a taxi. And until they stop, you can't get in unless you just hop in. And I feel like that Aquarius energy, as we get towards the middle of the winter season, largely the winter solstice energies, we feel that we're ending something from the past and we're shifting something into something in the future. And a lot of these come from that internal point of reflection, introspection, that dark period. Ever notice that when you spend time alone, how much you start to uncover and discover about yourself and also others? You see things that you don't when there's a lot of energies and clatter and chatter around you. But when things become silent, when other externalities are removed from your environment, from your energy field, and just from your overall being, you gain a sense of clarity that you didn't before. And I feel like with the sun coming and gradually getting bigger as we approach the spring equinox, we get greater confirmation of this too. So this is a time astrologically to also take stock of what's happened in your life, to review, to take a look at the past year, and even further, especially with things that may have been repeating, maybe certain themes or patterns or situations that you find that you are seeing happen again and again. Because what Saturn wants us to do here is to connect to that, to acknowledge that, to see that, to dive deep, and then ask ourselves, okay, what are we learning? Because Saturn is a teacher. He wants us to mature, to grow, to be responsible, but more importantly, not just to say, yeah, we got it. Just get a passing grade and go. But he wants us to learn from this so that these things don't repeat. So overall, during the winter solstice, you're going to feel a progression happening. That's the energy moving. Think like a carousel. We got Saturn, Aquarius, Pisces in an astrological way. And we're moving through these energies, slowly realizing the depth of ourselves in this darkness, how discomforting that may be, how uncomfortable it may be. That's also where we also realize the inner light that we have within, because it starts within. That spark, it comes from within each of us first before we see it externally with the sun, which is very emblematic of all of this. And then we shift into Aquarius, and That's when we get a lot of those epiphanies, those intuitive and psychic messages during that darkness that we can start putting into work in a more practical way with Aquarius. That's also when we can bring to mind the more intellectual parts of ourselves and combine that to create something that we didn't think we could before. And Pisces brings in the light. It's right before we have the spring equinox. So the last of the darkness is leaving, and now we have more light within this period. And so we're gaining a different sense of understanding, not just of our transcendence here, or of our ephemerality here. Because with Pisces too, things come full circle again. We're seeing and understanding that things really never end. We just transcend them and we learn and we grow. I think the most painful aspect of this that some people don't talk about with the winter solstice energies and just in general with what we experience as humans is the human aspect of the emotions. Because there's always an emotion tied to relationships, tied to a certain pattern, tied to a situation. And when things repeat themselves, sometimes we are stuck on that emotion, whether it's through self-victimization, through feeling hurt, wounded, whatever it is. We get fixated on what's happened and we keep playing that over, kind of like a cassette that's gotten stuck, or a VCR, what is it, a VHS tape that's gotten stuck in a VCR. It just keeps playing over and over in our head. And what Saturn wants us to do is to let that go. Because sometimes, you know, people tend to focus more on the negative aspects of Saturn. That Saturn just has it out for people. Saturn, the archetype, I should say, the energy, is all about karma and reaping what you've sown in past lives and this life. Yes, there's elements of that, but there's also elements of acknowledging how much you've grown. Because without those experiences, some of them tests, some of them challenges, you wouldn't have fortified the way that you have. You wouldn't have strengthened the way that you have. Imagine if you haven't experienced some of the challenges that you've experienced. You wouldn't know what it means to put all that time and energy into persevering. Sometimes it's easy to take things for granted because we don't know the flip side of things. It's that dual nature that exists in, you could say, the universe and life and in our human experience. So remember, in all of this, wherever there is death, metaphorically, there's also rebirth. So this is a cycle that's continuing onward, and we are heading towards a new chapter, a new level. There's a quote that I wanted to share from Richard Tarnas's Introduction to Archetypal Astrological Analysis. Saturn makes us stand alone and know solitude. It separates us from others, from the womb when we are born, from our childhood family as we grow older, and from everyone as we face our death. So you could take this in a literal sense, but also metaphorically, because this time is a time for going within and clearing that out. It's like your own inner attic, your own vault. Whatever has been weighing you down, maybe those extra winter jackets or those weights that you've kept that don't serve you. It's time to clear it out, but also come to a point of, okay, was I holding on to this for reasons other than I needed to learn something, or was it something else because of pain, of trauma, of attachment? Because the very essence of Saturn is, okay, guys, you're growing up. I know you're going to leave the nest. We got to get you prepared, ready, feeling good, confident, and want to make sure that you're able to handle the real world. So in short, the winter solstice, during this time, we have this energy of it's time to go and to grow. It's time to leave the past behind. It's time to close up those chapters. It's time to finish what we didn't finish, or to let it go. Because Saturn in this energy is not here to berate us or to hammer in us in a negative way, but to help strengthen our wings so that we can fly forward into the next cycle, into the next chapter and season of our lives. I went digging for quotes. It came to me, I got one quote, and then I found a few others that really exemplify the winter solstice. It's a really deep process of letting go within as it is outside. So the first quote is by Machona Dilwayo, a Zimbabwean born and Canadian-based author and entrepreneur. He said, "One who conquers the sea today is ready to conquer the ocean tomorrow." So there's a sense of leveling up here. It's internal, there's growth, but there's also an achievement here. And it's interesting because of the depth and the seas that we have here with this quote, because the sea goat is emblematic of Capricorn. And a lot of the epiphanies, a lot of the work we're doing is not seen. You know that iceberg metaphor and that visual many folks use to show you this is what people see, but this is what you don't see under the iceberg. That's the sea goat. The sea goat also does all his planning underground, under the water. And when he's ready to emerge, when he's got his shit together and his plan, that's when he starts ascending and climbing the mountain and working steadily, chipping away. Another quote by Kenji Miyazawa, Japanese poet and author, was, "We must embrace pain and burn it as fuel for our journey." So this, again, take it not just literally, but also energetically. The pain can relate to challenges, to anything that you've had to overcome, and things that you're seeing. Whenever you see this video during the winter solstice, we're learning to let go and to release, because sometimes things come to an end. Jobs, relationships, the year, it doesn't matter. We're on this carousel, right, that we keep going forward. It reminds me of Joni Mitchell's song, Circle Game, I think it's called. But we can use precisely all of that we've learned. You can call it your firewood that you're adding to your hearth, to your fireplace within you. That's going to fuel you forward in the spring season. So that's during the spring equinox. So remember, everything you're chopping down becomes akin to wood, maybe flotsam jetsam. And so, like I said earlier during this video, this energy never dies, it's simply transformed. So the pain that you may have experienced, or the hardships, especially with Capricorn ruled by Saturn, depending on where it's happening in your life, it's merely telling you, transmute that energy, use that for something good in your life, because it didn't happen just to make you feel this in a bad way. Another quote: "Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars." Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese-American poet, writer, author, he was a Capricorn sun, Mars, and Mercury, ironically. And I'm like, this resonates. I had a feeling I thought he had a stellium in Capricorn, and with the 3 planets, yes. But if you've ever read any of his poetry, it tends to be on the dark side, morose. But the words really, really, really highlight the ephemerality of a lot of the hardships and challenges we experience. It's important that we take stock of all of that and that we feel it, not to hurt us or pain us, but to realize it's just part of a cycle that we're here as humans to learn so that we can fortify and keep growing. That's it. Another quote by Khalil Gibran was, "Yesterday is but today's memory, and tomorrow is today's dream." So there's a connection here with the past, to the present, to the future, which is very much the Capricornian, Aquarian energies. This one is by Haruki Murakami. "And once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain, when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what the storm is all about." Again, a lot of connotations to the storms, to the depths, to the seas and oceans. And that's the deeper emotions of the Capricornian energy and what we all feel during the winter season, emblematic of the winter solstice energies. We're feeling all of this so that we can uncover what is not true for us anymore, what we don't want, and also to realize this wasn't done in vain. A lot of what we encounter, we don't see it sometimes in that moment. This was for my highest good, or this is to make me stronger, especially when we're younger and we're still growing. Especially when we're children and we're adolescents. We're like, life is unfair. Why is this always happening to me? But as you gain maturity and growth, especially the older you get, you start seeing things differently. The final quote is by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who wrote a lot. She was a psychiatrist from Switzerland who wrote a lot about death. The most beautiful people I've known are those who have known trials, have known struggles, have known loss, and have found their way out of the depth. So all of these quotes that I'm sharing really spoke to me and really signified and represented the winter solstice, particularly since Capricorn is the initiator too, that coincides with this event, and also the energies that are involved. So some of you later on, I'll detail some more, may find profound solace in words, in something that allows you to connect deeper to yourself, because there's a lot of expressions that want to come out during the winter solstice that we've kept vaulted, addict, hammered away, and this is about releasing them. Two channeled songs in particular that came forth during the making of this video. I channeled Kelly Clarkson's song Stronger, What Doesn't Kill You. What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger, from 2011. And here's an excerpt from the lyrics. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. What doesn't kill you makes a fighter, footsteps even lighter. Doesn't mean I'm over, 'cause you're gone. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, stronger. Just me, myself, and I. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller, doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. And then we also have Marvin Gaye's Mercy, Mercy Me, 1971. And a small excerpt here. Whoa, mercy, mercy me. Things ain't what they used to be, ain't what they used to be. Where did all the blue skies go? Poison is the wind that blows from the north and south and east. So both of these really speak to, again, things that we are learning as humans that may be transitory in our life, emotions, people, situation, things that we're learning to release and also see from a different viewpoint. Because a lot of these things, it's just a reinforcing energy. And it doesn't mean not to connect with those emotions. It doesn't mean not to avoid them or bypass them. But it simply means that Saturn, and this is what I'm trying to say with the winter solstice, because it coincides with Capricorn season among two other seasons, Aquarius and Pisces. It's allowing us to work through the shit that we may not have wanted to or that we're resisting, but also in areas that we have been working on, to realize that the darkness that we've experienced and that we are coining as maybe dark, evil, horrible, whatever it is, it's actually the beauty. It's lending beauty in the form of a gift to us, a soul gift, because it's allowing us to accelerate and move beyond those life human challenges that have caused pain, that have caused hardship, things that we don't want to experience again, but we realize, damn, had I not gone through those, would I have come out differently? Had I not experienced those, who would I be today? For many folks, those experiences that you may have gone through, especially in the Capricorn areas of your life, and even just the wintering energy, you may have turned out to be someone completely different. Who knows? Maybe this was part of your path. Maybe this was already pre-planned and destined, or maybe this was free will. Connected ancient folks, indigenous groups, have celebrated the winter solstice for a long time. It's nothing new. And today we've seen these continued celebrations in various parts of the world. And I'll mention a few in future videos. It would be wonderful to go into these more in depth. But we have the Soyal celebration with the Hopi Indians in northern Arizona. And so they celebrate the winter solstice as a form of purification, of releasing and letting go, celebrating. And they use these dolls for protection, like spirit protection dolls called cachinas. We also have the Inti Raymi festival, the festival of the sun in Peru, which is celebrated in June when they have the winter solstice, since they're in the Southern Hemisphere. And this stems back to the 1400s, 1412 to be exact. And it originated with the Incas. And so there was a lot of festivities, feasts, sacrifices to the gods in honor, and especially to the sun god. We also have Yalda, or Shab-e-Yalda, a Persian festival celebrating light and Dar, birthday of the sun god. It marks the last day of the Persian month, Azar. Again, this is another celebration that involves festivities, foods, a focus on pomegranates, abundance. It's interesting because pomegranates is also associated with Hades, or Pluto as we know him, the underworld, the darkness. And it's another way to celebrate this, and folks stay up into the sunrise to see the coming of the light. We have Saturnalia, which is often depicted as, or related to, I should say, as the origins of Christmas. So this was an ancient Roman festival. There were, again, feasts, games, celebrations, drinking, etc. On this day, ironically, maybe hypocritically, everyone was treated equally and the same. Slaves, those in servitude, and their masters, which to me is odd, and that requires more. We also have St. Lucia's Day, Festival of the Lights, that we see celebrated in many Scandinavian countries. This is to honor St. Lucia, but it was mixed in with some Norse solstice traditions. So they have other things that they do apart from feasting and celebrating and dressing in white gowns and I believe red crowns to honor the saint. Also lighting fires to ward off any spirits. Finally, we have Dongqi in China, which signifies the arrival of winter. So this is also another important holiday and celebration that celebrates the winter solstice with family, friends, and it also is a time where people reflect and look over the past year. So these are just several modern day celebrations that I did note, which have stems and linkages going way back, where folks to this day continue to integrate these practices, not just in a more modern way, but also connecting to their lineage, to their cultures, to their ancestors, and also to the meaning of light, darkness, the winter solstice, spirituality, and honoring the cycles of life, because this is really what it's about. Practical ways to celebrate and grow in this season. There's a few I mentioned. First one is rest. This is a wonderful time to create and prioritize the multidimensional nature of rest, because there are many different types of rest. So define what rest means to you, what it looks like, especially in this season of your life, and find a way to practice it during the winter solstice, during these 3 months. Because this is going to allow you to find some way to get comfortable with obviously not doing, to find stillness within yourself, and also to rejuvenate. A lot of times we think, okay, we're going to rest, but we're on the computer while watching TV, and that's not really rest. This is going to be one way that you can connect with yourself on a deeper level. I also feel like folks tend to find discomfort during this time in winter, because there may be a greater propensity, I should say, of being alone. And sometimes when you're alone, that's when things start to come up, or you feel things and you don't want to, but this is the perfect time to do so. The second practical way to celebrate and grow in this season is to contemplate. This goes with rest, but it doesn't have to connect if you don't want to do that. Grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and find time and space to really just reflect and think. And many times you can use music and quotes, like the quotes I mentioned earlier, movies, poetry, and other pieces of cultural and literary sources that connect and speak to you. Ever listen to a song or see a play or something that just moves you and you want to respond to it? And sometimes it's hard that the only way you can is through smiles or tears or simply remaining silent. This is a beautiful time during the winter solstice energies, during this season, to respond during these times of contemplation, because you can heal a lot in these different ways. It doesn't have to look in a traditional way of psychotherapy or anything like that. Third is to express. This connects to what I said before, express through writing, talking, speaking. It could be moving too, but find some way to move that energy out. That's the releasing component. So a fourth practical way to celebrate and honor and grow during this season is to heal, or work on your healing in whatever way that means to you. This could include shadow work. It could include any other type of healing as well, but focus on one type of darkness, and I put this in quotes, that has been coming up, bothering you, has been repeatedly showing up in areas of your life, perhaps haunting you to some extent, that you would like to focus on and unravel, because this may be a useful time to start unpacking that. Of course, disclaimer, please use your intuition, your discernment, and guidance. I'm not a medical doctor or mental health care professional, so connect to who you feel is best going to help you. A fifth way to celebrate this and to grow is to inspire. So connect to the last 2 to 3 lunar cycles that we've experienced in, what was it, Scorpio, Gemini, for instance, and highlight the themes that came up. Because I feel like some of them initiated some type of spark. You know, when you light a lighter, when you spark it, a little flame comes up. I feel like some of that is extending or connecting to these energies. So think about what is calling to you. What are you feeling pushed towards, or what little spark is starting to appear in your own inner hearth? And if you don't know yet, focus on what you don't want, because that helps you move away the pieces that you don't want so you can get closer to what you do. Release is another way. What do you want to let go of that you know is over, that you know you've learned everything you could in that situation or that relationship, or you know isn't supporting you anymore? We tend to enter every cycle in our lives with something we're bringing from the previous cycle or the past. And during the winter season, you may become very clear on things that you don't want to continue. It can be a habit, a routine, a belief system, certain relationships. Maybe it's a situation or something you're a part of, or even goals. Whatever it is, there's something here about honoring yourself and letting go of anything that's not going to help you get to where you want to go. Because as we head towards the light, we're also shedding layers. Disengage. The winter solstice asks us to extend ourselves into this darkness purposefully, intentionally, in ways that are going to allow us to connect to ourselves in a much deeper way than we haven't before. And so this can mean getting rid of or reducing consumption with social media, with technology, with anything extraneous or external around us that's simply maybe draining us or taking a lot of our time or making us feel less energized than usual, because during this time the energies can be a bit lower. Another way to celebrate and grow during this time is light. You can celebrate the winter solstice by lighting a candle or several candles, setting an intention, interacting with or connecting to the sunrise or sunset, maybe during a walk or a time in nature, or putting up lights indoors. You know, some people have twinkle lights like I have, because light represents hope and faith, and something that we may not readily see right now during the winter season, but it's coming and it's growing. In addition, for people that may not want to use candles or add lights, you can always use other items to represent your light. So think about what represents light for you: hope, optimism, joy. It could be a photo of a loved one or a pet. It could be getting a new pet. It could be maybe a blanket or slippers, maybe a warm cup of tea. Whatever it is, connect to that, because that's allowing you to recognize, to honor yourself through this transitory process. Another way to celebrate is connect. Connect through prayer, meditation, nature. Connect with your spiritual team or your friends and family. Because during this time, in the winter solstice, we celebrate with others, because we can impart our own light and share that light with others in acknowledgement to something higher, to something bigger, and also to exchange in that festivity of joy, of optimism, of faith and hope. A next practice, or another way to celebrate and grow with this energy with the winter solstice, is to ritualize. I mentioned this briefly with the candles, but you could take a sunset or sunrise walk and meditate, or simply sit and be with the energies. Just sit. You could light a candle and set an intention. You could also make offerings in nature or to your altar. So there's a variety of ways, many of them tailored and personalized to you. Next, feast. It's not a surprise that in many of these ancient and even modern cultures that continue to celebrate the festivals of light and honoring of the sun and the winter solstice, to celebrate with others over food. Food has been something that has connected people across centuries. So cook items, foods, bake things that are comforting for you, that bring you joy, that are warm, whatever is meaningful to you, which is going to be different to everyone, and share it with others or make it for yourself, because this is another way to ground and connect to these energies. So the last way to celebrate and honor and grow with these energies is inner child fun. On the day of the winter solstice, December 21st or 22nd, make sure you check every year, because in 2023, at the time of this taping, it's December 21st. At 12 p.m. noon your time, stand outside and look at your shadow, because it'll be the longest shadow you'll ever see because of the position of the sun. The North Pole is tilted away from the sun, so the height of the arc of the sun is low, and you'll see that long shadow. Same thing in the Southern Hemisphere. You'll see the opposite, a short shadow. So this is really, it's just a fun way to connect with the sun in a childlike way. And if you have children, it's another way too for them to get involved. I hope this video gave you some more insights and understandings of the winter solstice, especially as it connects spiritually, energetically, practically, but also astronomically, so you understand how you can utilize this in your own way. I highly encourage you to personalize it, connect with this in a way that's meaningful to you, that allows you to create your own rituals and practices and habits to honor your light within yourself, light in something bigger in the divine, also your own darkness, because darkness is not, it's not bad, it just exists. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you soon. Take care.